Welcome to Surrender School.
So we come from the 12-step world, all of us. So that's many, many years. I guess if you added it all up, it'd be over 100 years. So we won't talk about that. Everything that we offer is on the website, and we really want to drive you to the website because it is so rich. There's just so much information out there from the years that we've done Surrender School, which is probably about 3 years now, and lots of really good information out there. Watch the chat today because there is information that's put into the chat that allows us to cover not so much stuff in the beginning, which takes up quite a bit of time. And then also, we now have a second Zoom room. Most of you do know that. This will stay in Zoom room 1 until we finish out this. And then I think pretty much everything's going to go to Zoom room 2. But for right now, we'll stay here on Zoom room 1 until we're finished here. And the office hours for this are in Zoom room 1, and also the Wisdom of the Enneagram book reading room is also in Zoom room 1, but I think everything else pretty much is in Zoom room 2. All right, I put a B here to remind myself to tell people that if you have a B in front of your name, it means that we think that you are prepared and want to be a breakout room leader today, because we will have breakout rooms. If that is not the case and today you really don't want to do that, reach out to Kathy M. and let her know that you'd prefer not to be a breakout room leader. It's going to be pretty short breakout room, probably 20 minutes, 6 or 7 people per room, because we're moving along nicely. And some of you weren't here yet. This 1 week off in the middle felt like a month. It's like it feels like it's been forever since we've been together. So I'm glad you guys are here. All right, a couple of things that we have going on: abstinence and recovery Mondays at 5:30. And Scarlett H basically leads people through the 31-day intensive that Linda T did back in May. And it's once a week, covers one of those things. There's some writing and then some sharing. So I hear that's going really well. There's also a new reading room. We're reading Emotional Sobriety again, and Dave and Kim are leading that on Fridays in Zoom room 2, Fridays at 8 in the morning. And then also there is an intuitive eating workshop, and Samantha Conboy, who does this for a living, also is doing it for Surrender School for no charge. So we're very excited that she's doing this, and it's going really well, and I'm learning a lot from what Sam is covering. So hopefully those of you that and she's not doing it in sequence, which means there's lots of really good stuff left. So if you haven't attended, please do. And also the recordings for everything she's done so far are out there. And it's really good. Okay, couple things I want to cover. So this is what it looks like for the rest of our sessions of the 12 steps. And so what I did is sat down and basically planned out what I'm going to be teaching, or what will be taught for each of these sections. So today I'm calling it Owning It. On the 14th is the Step 9 Promises. On the 21st is Using the Pause. There's an exercise that we're going to do. And then on the 28th, I'm going to talk about harmonic groups. And on the 5th of October, the 12 step, the Step 10 Promises, and then Enneagram levels, meditation methods, introducing service, the Hornavian groups I'm going to introduce, and then instincts and resources. Here is what I'd like to pose to you, to anybody here. If any of this stuff is of interest to you and you would like to be the one to cover it, okay, let me know, because a lot of people might be interested in covering something for Surrender School, but they're not interested in doing like a year-long thing, or they're not interested even doing a 6-week thing, but they would be very happy to do a 10, 15, 20-minute thing where they cover something like the harmonic groups. You can use the slides that I have if you want, or you can make your own, or you can just talk about it or whatever. So anyway, if you're interested, reach out to me. I'm on, if you go out to the Surrender School page there, I mean the Supercharge page, you'll see my email address and also phone number. So I never answer the phone unless you text me and tell me who you are. Don't just say hello. I block people that just say hello. So say something more than that, like who you are, if I don't already know who you are. All right, anyway, if anybody's interested in co-teaching or teaching these some of these topics, let me know. Or even if you're just kind of interested in it and want to see what's going to happen, please reach out to me. I'd love that. That would be great. And it gets more people involved, which we like. All right. Okay, so let's take a moment to feel your breath going in and out and feel your feet on the floor. The goal is to be 100% present. Now, together, let's say the Surrender School set aside prayer. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. All right, the goal of this course is a personal journey. Our focus is to help you understand the relationship between your false self, that ego self, and your true self, and to treat yourself with unrelenting compassion because you are human. And I love the fact that the website has now added that we're a compassionate organization. I usually feel like if I have to say I'm compassionate, that probably means I'm not, but in this case, that's not true because this is a very compassionate organization and it shows up every day. Okay, some things to keep in mind. First of all, I don't have it out here anymore. I used to say I'm not an expert, and then Joy had me take that down, but it is the truth. And there's so many of you that are researching and learning and growing and changing and doing all the studying. And it really does show up that there's so many people here that know much more about the Enneagram than I do. So, which thrills me. I think that's wonderful. And once again, the gift that I get from my greater power is that I can take complex things and make them simple so that people have like the entry. You get to enter into the world of the Enneagram. I'm never the expert. I'm never going to be the person that teaches you all the deep and meaningful. I don't do that. That's not my deal at all. And it took me a while to embrace it, but I completely embrace it now. So I'm your intro into it. That's it. All right. So some things to keep in mind. This entire session is about working the steps by type. So if you're just joining us now, I don't think anyone is, but if you are, be sure to take the test so that you know what type you want to kind of check into. We do believe that self-contempt stops spiritual growth. So even though the compassion sounds like a kind thing, and it is a kind thing, it's not as altruistic as it seems because that's how we grow spiritually, is that we feel compassion for ourselves and therefore for other people as well. All right. We do believe if you do the work, your recovery will be supercharged. And we also want to remind you that there's a lot of things you could choose to be in the world. We ask that you be kind to yourself and to other people as well. All right. I always have this slide because I want to remind everybody that what we're looking for, right, by asking all the questions and answering the questions, is we want to see the patterns that we have in our life. We want to see them as patterns that survive on their own. We didn't even create them. And sometimes we are victims of them, right? But once we see those patterns and once we see the stories that we're telling ourselves, what happens is the more that we see them, the more that they can dissipate, the more that they will disappear. They'll never be completely gone because that's called being a human. But once we see the patterns, we can interrupt the pattern. Once we see the projection, we can change the story. I'm learning about this from the intuitive eating class. I'm learning a whole new layer of this, a whole new level of this. And I'm shocked almost every day on some of the things that I'm journaling about. I'm like, where did that come from? Anyway, so it's an amazing journey, which I'm really enjoying. I love this quote. Growth and comfort rarely hold hands. I have found this to be true in my life. And Joy all the time talks about trying to get comfortable with discomfort, right? And it's like, yes, because it is the discomfort. It's being uncomfortable that allows me to grow. And it doesn't mean that they're enemies. It's just that they rarely hold hands. This came from a quote, and I'm going to read the whole thing. Growth and comfort rarely hold hands. Every dream worth living will ask something of you. A little fear, a little friction, a little faith. Because truthfully, you can't give birth to the next version of yourself without a little pain, sometimes more than a little. But here's the thing. Once you're on the other side, once the dream becomes real, the struggle fades into a blur. What you're left with is joy, pride, freedom, fruit. I really like that. And I really feel like it's so funny because I'm retired, so I don't have like professional goals or anything like that, which means these last 3 years I've had a lot of trouble coming up with goals. And I lived my life by goals in the past. So I'm a little adrift, but that's okay because growth and comfort rarely hold hands. So, what I'd like to share on now, if anyone would like to, is that whole idea of growth and comfort rarely holding hands. I'd really like to hear other people and basically interpret this however you want to. I'm going to stop sharing and see if anybody wants to share on this. I would love to hear some comments. Hold on, let me put this in gallery mode. All right, Cheryl, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl, and I'm a type 4. And this, the fact that I raised my hand and decided to go first is actually a big growth for me. I spent many months in another 12-step program and couldn't raise my hand to give a share or put my camera on. But anyway, my big growth that came to mind right away is that I've been wanting to go bike riding, and my husband is very much not interested in doing this. And now I have two bikes actually now, and trying to find somebody, and I keep putting it off and putting it off, and I want to do it. And who's going to go with me? Well, today I decided to go for a bike ride all by myself. I said, if you want to do it, go and enjoy it. And don't keep waiting for somebody who's probably doesn't want to go, and my bike is just going to sit in the garage and I'll be waiting forever. So I made a big growth. I made a big achievement today. Thank you very much, all. Nice to be here.
Awesome. And that's a perfect example of, right, that it's like you have to just say, I know I'm not going to be comfortable making this decision, but I'm going to grow instead. Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, Jasmine, to you.
I'm getting rid of cowardice when it comes to the emotional side because I used to like just stuff and avoid feeling it, but I am like kind of running into the storm, so to speak, and I'm feeling it and I'm crying. And it hurts like hell, but it's worth it once I get through it because then I feel more whole almost and like I'm facing life on life's terms instead of running all the time like I did when I was in active addiction.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. Yeah.
It really
Growth.
feels like, you know how this is a bad example. I don't want to trigger anybody, but you know, you're sick, you're nauseous all day, and it's like it comes to a point where for me, I hate to be sick. But sometimes it's better to just go through it and just get it up almost. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Thank you for that visual. No, I'm kidding. Seriously, thank you for that. All right, Elham, to you. Thanks, Jess.
Hello. So when I was a kid, I was drowned, and I have phobia of swimming. I took several times classes. I never learned. This is sounds funny, but I am looking at videos to teach swimming on YouTube. But this is something I have to practice. But I'm trying to make my brain ready. I also talk to a therapist who is a specialist for this kind of phobia, and I'm visualizing to be safe. If I don't hold anybody's hand, I don't panic. So I registered for swimming class. I did
Awesome.
that. I just I'm worried if they let go of me, because when I was a kid, I was drowned and I tried to hold on somebody and they pushed me, and I was like 7, 8 years old. But that keep coming to my mind when I'm in the water after these many years. So I want to trust I can do it, and I want to have faith that they save me. So
Thank you, Elham. Yeah, when I was 8 or 10, something like that too, same kind of thing. This lady was supposed to be helping me or something, and anyway, like somebody did save me, so I didn't drown, but it was close, and I was very afraid. And where it came out for me when I was in an airplane going over the sea, going over the ocean. I'd have the map up and I was fine. But if it was only ocean and I couldn't see land on the map in the airplane, I had to shut it off. It made me so nervous. But it's like, if you crashed into the land, you die. And if you crashed into the ocean, you die. So I didn't even understand why, right? But it's like, okay. But it would crop up. So I do understand that. It's like leftover stuff, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if we ever get rid of our leftover stuff. Be kind. Make sure you be kind to yourself. You be kind, even while you're going through this, right? No, no, none of this. Just be
I
kind.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I even was uncomfortable to go to bathtub.
Oh, okay.
That much.
Now you can see, so there's
Yeah,
growth there too.
yeah, go to bathtub.
Well, I'm proud of you. That's awesome.
Big
Thank you, Emma.
achievement. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Joy, to you.
Um, so I am in the Eating in the Light of the Moon group, which is basically embracing the feminine within. Even males have a feminine side and a masculine side. And to do that, I have to do all these freaking girly things. I made a commitment, which my God's God is showing up, so I have to keep it. I have to be persistent and consistent. And one of the things I'm doing is on the Surrender School website, we have a way to fill out a food journal that what did you eat, what you were doing before, what you were thinking, what you were feeling, the physical side. I am doing that. And first of all, I am really uncomfortable doing that. I feel like someone's forcing me to do it. No one is but myself. But I'm seeing so much. And I am I am getting things that symbolize, I have to find something that symbolizes balance, and I have to prepare a space, a nice space for me to do this work, all this. And I had a freaking, do an art, I think it's an art project. It's supposed to be a meditation and make a mandala. Okay, that if that weren't enough, I really have to go deep and talk about my feelings really, really deeply. And what I am uncovering is, and I shared a little bit about it right when I got on, is that these freaking two qualities really, 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 really are at my core. And no matter what, like, I really have to set stronger boundaries, even stronger than I've been doing, especially with my son. And it is freaking tough, and I have to micromanage. And I don't want to do that. But to grow, it's what's needed. And again, at the core is this want to be wanted. So as a two, I complain because I do everything at home. I do the finances, take care of all the appointments, I do things that my husband and son can do for themselves. And then I'm upset, so I stop doing everything. And then I'm upset because they don't need me. And they're doing things without me. And they don't want me. And I'm not making everybody happy. This is really super uncomfortable. And it's the reason I use food. One of them. Many are uncomfortable. And there's one more thing I have to say. I have to say, watching Cher and being here today and just hearing her say how compassionate you have to be with yourself and others, I have seen tremendous, she talks about the growth she sees in me, tremendous grace and growth in her. And I'm glad I'm here because I was beating myself up, right? And her encouraging others feels good to me because I take that in. So thank you.
Thank you, Joy. And I want to say, I'm going through the discomfort that's almost the opposite of that for the first time in my adult life. I'm being asked to not track these things, to not, I mean, I use my Fitness Pal, I weigh and measure. That's been all of it gone because I need a completely new perspective on food and eating and drinking and all of that. And it's coming to me in waves. And it is which is why I fell in love with that. Growth and comfort rarely hold hands. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm hoping they hold hands again someday, but right now they don't. And I love that. So thank you, Joy. But yeah, it's like wherever we're at in our journey, that's where we're supposed to be. And what can we learn while we're there? Right. And it's going to be, it's the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I didn't want people to think, oh, maybe I need to weigh and measure and maybe I need to add, not if you're not at that place. Right. Because I'm at kind of like the opposite end of that. At some point, we'll probably both be the same, but right now we're not. And it's cool because that's really what Surrender School is all about, is finding your own path. So,
well, yeah. And she said, I mean, it's different for everyone and it can be complete opposites. It's complete opposites, but it's all about control. It's all
in some form or other. That, yes, exactly. I never thought about that. That's by type. Thank you, Joy. All right, Teresa, to you.
Yeah, hi. I think like the uncomfortability of setting boundaries, because I feel so guilty when I set a boundary, like I'm being mean, and to get through the reactions of other people. It's tough because, that fear of abandonment, they're not talking to me and it's so uncomfortable. So sometimes I feel like, well, maybe I should just jump back in there, but I can't at this point. So like getting through this part is like withdrawals. I mean, the other day, somebody told me that my brother is really not doing good. And I went home and I struggled. I mean, I could start crying now because I wanted so much to pick up that phone and call him and say something to him, but it just wasn't. They never, they don't accept my change, and it's hard. So I have to get through the uncomfortability of not being that person to jump right in, take over, and call because I feel really bad for him. That's not the right reason. So it's very uncomfortable when I'm setting boundaries and, people don't accept it and I'm not getting like great reactions. So sitting, like riding the wave out through that. And it's like grieving. It's almost like grieving my old self. And it's like I'm in the middle of becoming someone else that I don't know who it is. I don't even know, but it's really like Joy was just saying, it's really tough, because part of me wants to get in there and be in control and get him to the right doctors and help, and then I know that's not the right thing for me to do, So I cried the other day. I ate over it a little bit, but I was thinking it's okay right now. It's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up because I didn't eat, perfectly. I was at a wedding, so yeah, I did. I picked up some junk because I was uncomfortable sitting with my husband for 4 hours without him saying one word to me too. But anyway, it was a fun wedding. Besides the point. All right, I'll stop because I'm blathering. But yeah, getting through it's hard. It's hard to let go. Really hard to let go.
And Teresa, that's a perfect example of growth and comfort rarely hold hands, right?
Yeah.
Because you're uncomfortable and you are growing, right? Yeah, that's a perfect example of that. Thank you. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Tamara, to you.
Good morning, everybody. Growth and comfort rarely hold hands, and comments from others resonated with me. And as I tried to do the homework, what came up for me about this is trying to be supportive parent to my adult child who has mental and physical health issues. And so there's trying to balance the compassion with not overdoing is very, very challenging. And but at least she's not yelling at me anymore. We have come to an understanding, and I just feel for her, and realizing that Uh, in some part, I contributed to her relying on me. There's just a fine line between being a good parent, especially when there are actual life issues that a person might not be able to. It's like an elderly parent when they start losing their cognition. You know, at what point are you overdoing? And at what point is it appropriate? So growth, I guess for me, growth is just continuing to try and figure out that fine balance and being compassionate with myself and with her and not jumping to solutions because that isn't what she really wants. She wants me to just listen. So that's what's happening with me on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tamara, it makes so much sense for a 6 because you want it solved because you see all the horrible things in the future that could happen if it's not solved, right? So it's like that's a very 6 reaction. That's yeah.
Well, and all the great things that could happen if there was just a tweak in the perception of
That's
life.
right.
And it's
Yes.
like when somebody is not ready to put on a different pair of glasses or not able to, you know, I don't know what the answer is. That's it. And that's where I think my growth is too, is like it's more about missing out. She's, you know, missing out on, see, I said to her yesterday, you know, you have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet, ears that work, brain that works, heart. I don't want to be grateful right now, Mom. Okay. Okay.
Well, and I want to say too, my sponsor used to say, God has no grandchildren. We're all direct reports, right? So, and I'm not a parent, so this is a view from the cheap seats, but yeah, it's like, oh, it's got to be so hard. Thank you, Tamara. All right, Vera, to you.
Yeah, hi. So I've the more I watch this growth and discomfort, the more I realize that in my addiction and in my type more than anything, for that to take place, there's something that needs to be there, and that is safety. And I can only have safety if I have resources, and by resources, I mean other people in recovery. Because otherwise the discomfort becomes so overwhelming that I become paralyzed. And I think that action, which is, you know, action as in recovery, like whatever the recovery is, whether it be in OA or whether it be in DA or A, whatever it is, sometimes it's abstaining from behaviors, sometimes it's practicing, but that's the action. That's what I mean.
Yep.
I am so programmed to avoid action to avoid the correct action, the right action, the next right thing, through jumping into something else. I want something else. And throughout this week, I've had a really big health scare a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still there. I have an exam coming on the 19th, an angiogram, and I think that I've got some clogs in my heart, arteries, in my heart. And so, and all the while, all I thought was, I think that I need to change career. I think I need to, move. And this is my type. This is my thing of something else. I need something else. And that something else is my inability to be present for action. But the only way I can be present for action, and the more I experience it, the more I watch myself in that space of anxiety, the more I realize that, yes, I do not the next right thing, but action on another scale, change, switch to something that gives me more pleasure so that I can escape from that. And knowing that is just, it's a blessing. It really is a blessing, especially at this time, because I can go say, okay, I watch this, I can see you, I can feel you, and I can be here for you, which is, I will look for other people to help me. And that's been, massive change.
Okay, so I'm going to say, yay, this is exactly by type what we are talking about, because a 9 would disappear, right? A 7 would look for whatever, how can I distract myself? How can I go somewhere else? How can I, right? A matter of fact, a 7 would change doctors, right? It's like, what? Exactly. And it's like, no, because you see the pattern. When we see the patterns of patterns, And the stories that we tell ourselves as stories we tell ourselves, that's when we begin to grow. Right? That's the reason that slide will probably always be part of anything that I do, because it is seeing the patterns that is the answer there. Right? And Vera, I mean, certainly feels uncomfortable, but that growth, I'm going to say the quote again, growth and comfort rarely hold hands. They're not enemies, but growing is not comfortable. Right? Even plants, they're breaking through the ground when right? That's not the comfortable part of their life, right? And that's true for us too. Absolutely true for us. So best of luck or prayers, etc. on your tests. I know that's always scary, but you have us, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you, Vera. All right, Shirley, to you, and then Dave, and then we'll wrap this part up.
So that's almost like a mantra. Growth is not comfortable. And I think when I started the Supercharge Your Recovery, I felt like I had somewhat of a background in Enneagram, and I felt in control and I could manage everything. And then all of a sudden I got flung into this anxiety and despair and, a little, information coming from Surrender School, like, draw on your compassion, develop your compassion, be kind. And I remember when I first entered the 12 step and they'd say, okay, what are you grateful for? Make a gratitude list. One thing. Just pick one item. And I used to sit there, I don't know. What am I grateful for? And I feel like the same thing is how I approach compassion. Of course, I'm a very finish line person. That's why I was so attracted to goal. Wait, I'm going to get there. It's going to be perfect. But, being able, I think here at Surrender School, I feel like being able to recognize the small little, the small, what do you call it, Cher? The moments of something and the bits of something, like just being able to recognize that is, that's
I think what you're talking about is, I say freedom comes first, and then it's days of happiness and moments of joy.
Right. The moments of joy. And when I have a moment of joy, sometimes I'll say to myself, so what? But you know what? It's meaningful, and it's starting to make more sense. And there's a lot of discomfort. I've been in a lot of discomfort for a long time now, and I am grateful that I have the blessing of showing up and coming back. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, you all thought this was going to be fun, didn't you? No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. It is. It's fun for me. Hey, whatever. Okay. Dave, to you. Thank you, Shirley.
Yeah, hi everybody. I had a realization yesterday at an ACA meeting, Loving Parent Guidebook meeting, where I realized that my effort to take charge of things and be in control of things and stuff like that is I'm really finding the limits of what I can do. I've taken on so many commitments that my commitments are starting to conflict with each other. And I've reverted to kind of an old pattern where, the easiest ones to not keep are the ones closest to home, things like cleaning house or doing yard work or stuff like that. And I'll talk about that in the breakout room too. Um, but what I said was, all this desire to be in charge and be in control of things, I feel like now I'm the dog that finally caught the car. It's like, what do I do now? I have too many things to do. And the other thing I've noticed is there are people who are perfectly willing to let me be in charge of things because then they have less stuff they have to do. And that's creating expectations that I don't want. I don't want them, just because I've stepped up so many times before that now they're assuming that I'm just always going to do that. But I'm not. I'm not going to keep doing it. And that is uncomfortable because I always have this feeling like, well, it seems like nobody else is doing it, so I guess I'm going to have to do it or it won't get done. No, some people are just holding back, hoping that no one else will step up. But if I just say, nope, I am not going to be that guy this time, somebody does. Somebody does. But it is uncomfortable in that interim period between, am I going to do it or not, you know? So I always thought, and I've talked about this before, I thought, well, once I'm retired, I'll have like unlimited time to do everything I want to do. That is not true. I still only have 24 hours a day. I still need to sleep and eat and do some of the basic things that every person has to do. So anyway, I'm at that point right now, and it's it is an uncomfortable place. So thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I hear you, brother, as an 8, right? And so one of the things I learned, because I would say, I'll do it because it's easy for me to do, might be hard for you, I'll do it, right? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it, right? That's what I had to learn. Is just because it's easy for me doesn't mean I'm supposed to do it, right? Just because I'm organized or whatever, it doesn't mean I'm supposed to do it. And I took completely a year after I retired, absolutely did not volunteer for anything. Very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But I didn't do it well either because I volunteered for a bunch of shit. But we won't talk about that. I tried. That's what I'll say. I tried to not volunteer for anything. Thank you, Dave. All right, Sarah, and then we'll wrap this part up. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, so I'm a 2 and I'm a chronic people pleaser. I'm in recovery from codependency. And I recently, I'm trying to start dating again. It's been about 18 months since I've been dating. And so I got back on the dating apps, which is as much as a nightmare as it was before. But luckily I have new tools. And this guy texted me last night. You know, I got the like you up kind of text message, which I was not up because it was 4 a.m. And so I texted him when I woke up and said, no, I'm not normally awake at 4 a.m. unless it's emergency. And essentially, though, I told him, even if I had been awake, I wouldn't have come to see you because I'm not a booty call. And I know that that probably sounds obvious that most people, but that wasn't always something that I would have said before. It's not something that I would have, and then I would have become resentful because I would have been like, why is this person treating me this way? Or why is this happening? Or I would have, made myself available in ways that I don't want to, like in ways that didn't really work for me. And so, but there is this part of me, the part that's uncomfortable, that is like, oh my gosh, what if he never speaks to me again? Or what if he's the one? Obviously he's not the one, right? Or obviously a person who is the one, which is very subjective, wouldn't be messaging me like this anyway, right? And so it's okay to bless and release and let this guy go, but at the same time, there is that part of me that like wounded part that still is in conflict with my growth, and is like, what about the missed opportunity? It's always like what could have been, and or what could be, or that I'm not gonna, that I have to settle, which is something I'm working on anyway from my step 4, is realizing that I often settle so that I'll have nothing, or so that I won't have nothing. And so I'm still working. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
And Sarah, as a 2, right, we all have a hole in our soul, and the 2's hole is they really, really are afraid that they are not loved, or in some cases not lovable, right? So you are already wired that way. So I'm so proud of you, right? Because you set a boundary, even if it's just a personal boundary, and that is, no, I'm not going to, even if I got up at 4, even if I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to do that because that's not what I want. That is wonderful, right? That discomfort does not hold hands with growth because you're growing, right? And it's like, but I think of all the stuff, I know I keep quoting that, but it just hit me in the face because it's like, why do I expect to grow and stay comfortable? That doesn't happen. It is uncomfortable, but then we get to see it because we're seeing our patterns. And sometimes we see them like we're not doing it anymore. And we go, you know what I used to do? I used to do that. And now I don't do that. That is growth. And growth is small. It's really rare. And everything that I'm reading says these explosions of growth, like Bill W. talked about, right? You know, the flash of from heaven and all that shit, that doesn't happen to normal people. It doesn't happen to us. It's these little bits of growth. And then we go back and then grow a little more, right? And yeah. And I'm just embracing that life is uncomfortable, that there, I mean, it doesn't mean every minute of every day is uncomfortable, but if I want to grow, which I do, I'm going to be uncomfortable. And I used to think that, I quote this all the time. I know you guys are sick of hearing it. May 26th of for today. The lust for comfort, that stealthy thing that enters the house a guest, becomes a host, and then a master. So for much of my adult life, comfort was my master. How much growth did I have? You can't if comfort is your master, right? So yeah, I'm proud of you. That's awesome, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen again and let's move on. All right, I'm going to give an example. We're going to be talking about amends a little bit, and I want to give an example. I saw something on the news. There was a little kid that had a yellow hat that he had one of the famous tennis players sign. And as the guy handed it back, some grown man reached over, grabbed the hat, and hid it in his wife's backpack or something, right? Okay. It ends up, and I remember just being appalled by that. And so, frankly, was the world appalled by that. And this little kid's like, right, because the hat disappeared and the guy took it and hid it. Now, this gentleman, the reason I'm talking about amends, because this gentleman was the CEO of a company. And I guess he just decided that he wanted the hat more than the little kid did or something. I don't know what motivated him. I'm not sure. But he eventually said, yeah, I got caught up in it. So I'm going to give a bunch of money to this, to some charitable organization. Okay. That is not the way amends work. Just want to say. What should happen if life were fair is this man should pay for that fucking kid's college for the rest of his life because he ruined what was an amazing memory, was tainted. Now, by the way, the tennis player saw this and met with the little kid and his family later and basically did nice things for him. So the little kid wasn't out of anything and it ended up a good example for him. But this CEO guy, this guy that took the hat from the kid, he will carry that with him if he ever goes through like a 12-step. He's going to owe a real amends for that because what he made was an indirect amends that really didn't do anything. I mean, it really didn't change anything. I mean, he was embarrassed and, and as he should have been, right? By the way, this is an example of guilt that can eventually turn into shame if you don't take care of the amends. That's really what happened here. We rarely get a chance to see something like this happen that we can talk about the way amends work. So I just wanted to share that before I go on with other things here. All right. Now, I know that we're on step 9, but I want to talk for a minute about what makes it difficult because really and truly, the actual amends itself, I'm going to cover when we're back from break or from the breakout rooms. I'm going to cover basically the way the amends works and how deep you go amends because there's different levels of amends, not even just different types, but even of the direct amends, there are levels. But I want to talk about what by type might make it difficult for you to be willing to make an amends. So even though that's step 8, it's very much obviously tied to, and I don't know if these are right or not. This is from last year's sessions. I think they're relatively right. Okay, for the type 1, right, willing to admit that I've been wrong. Let me just do better in the future, right? Which can, I mean, I'm sure this guy is promising he's going to do better in the future and not steal a hat from a kid because it might be on video. I'm sure that guy is doing that. But the idea for a type 1, right, that really feels uncomfortable because they're wired to be afraid of being imperfect. And then they did something that wasn't perfect, right? Okay, for the 2, willing to admit that I might be selfish. Early, before you know your type, 2s are like selfish. I'm not selfish, right? They just absolutely can't embrace that. Now, we've been around the here long enough that people 2s embrace that. Yeah, that is selfish of me. And Bill W. talks about that. Even in our kindness, aren't we self-serving? Yeah, we are. Okay. For the 3, willing to admit my persona doesn't match my person, doesn't match my behavior, right? Afraid that it might hurt their reputation. For the 4, there is no way that they suffered more than I did. So it's so hard to see that they didn't deserve what I dished out. Very difficult to see that they didn't deserve what I dished out to them. right? That's usually the problem with the 4. With the 5, they're a very private person. It's difficult to share feelings. Even if I had them, difficult to share the feelings. For the 6, what I'm hoping that they didn't even notice my behavior, whatever it was. What if this person walks away? What if they deny me support once I've shared whatever this is, right? That's a real fear. For the 7, hey, they didn't notice it anyway. Why should I bring that up? Why should I bring this suffering into my life? That's a typical 7. For the 8, willing to admit vulnerability. Don't like to admit vulnerability. And for the 9, willing, I might be willing tomorrow, but I'm not willing right now. So to push that yourself into willingness is hard for the 9. So I don't know if any of this resonates, but if it does, all right, we're going to talk a little bit about amends. So first of all, any day that includes Aragorn is a good day for me. That's why this picture was here. It's all about me. Anyway, I think he's beautiful. All right, so you have to hold it before you can release it. That's one of the things that my sponsor, she used to literally have me hold things, because you have to hold it, because you can't release it until you have it. So you have to hold it, you have to own it before you can release it. That's one of the first things, right? I like this. Darling, just fucking own it. All right. An amends is a change or a compensation for a loss. So I want you to think about that's what we mean when we say amends, right? Sometimes it's just a change and sometimes it's a compensation for a loss. To own means to acknowledge, and acknowledge means to recognize the fact of. I recognize the fact that I did something selfish. I recognize that. The other part of this is I say or admit, and sometimes it's and admit especially if you owe an amends to someone. And admit means to confess. So we do both of these when we do a step 9. We acknowledge to ourselves and we confess to the other person. So we literally are. And the confession isn't beating your chest. Oh, it's not like that. It just basically, I was selfish when I did whatever it is, right? I was fill in the blank when I fill in the blank. I deeply regret it. How do I make it right? Or how do I fix our relationship or whatever it is, however you want to end that. But I acknowledge it to myself. That's the first step of it, right? I have to say, yes, I really did do wrong here. I really did harm that person here. And then the confession to them basically is the final piece of owning it. If you own something that you cannot give away, you don't own it, it owns you. This is true of your step 9 as well. If you have realized, you've acknowledged, but you just can't bring yourself to basically talk to that person about it, and I'm talking about a direct amends here. If you can't do that, then it owns you. It owns you for the rest of your fucking life. And I'm telling you, that guy who stole that yellow hat, he may not feel like it owns him now, but if he ever goes through recovery, it is going to own him. It does own him. Some part of him, it owns him, unless he just never ever changes and always is just a selfish asshole. I mean, that's entirely possible, I guess. But if there's ever a time in his life that he is in recovery, it's going to own him. He's going to owe a real amends for that. Okay, and that is true of all of us. And most of us don't do things like that, but there's still right? And once again, and use this for the step 9. If you now own something, you own what your behavior was. If you cannot make an amends to that person, you don't own it. It owns you. Keep that in mind, right? This is what tortures us. This is what drives us to the food. This is what drives us to alcohol. This is what drives us to sex or drugs. This is what drives us because it owns our ass. So now we're going to talk step 9. And what we're going to do in the breakout rooms is what makes making amends hard or easy. Maybe for you, it's easy. That's entirely possible, right? Okay, so once again, in the breakout room, let's share on what makes making amends hard or easy for you, or when it is. I suppose that's true too. Okay, so in the breakout rooms, we're going to share on, and Kathy, are we ready with the breakout rooms?
We are ready to go.
How much
Sorry
time are
about
we going to
that.
have?
Okay, so how many people are in the breakout, will be in the breakout rooms?
We've got about 5 to 6 people in each breakout room.
Okay, it's going to be a 20-minute, so everybody will have about 3 minutes to share. And what you're going to share is what makes it hard or what makes it easy, right? Or what would make it hard or easy if you owe direct amends to somebody. And once again, indirect, where you give something to someone else, or even living differently, right? That's really pretty much not what we're talking about here. We're talking about direct amends to someone that you have done some wrong to, that you've harmed them in some way. Everybody good with that? All right, we're ready to go to the breakout rooms. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Pass this. Thank you. And their response must be irrelevant to me. I can't care what their response is. I can't care about that. That's the next level, right? I do this to clean up my side of the street. It really is time for me to completely move past this, right? I need to not care about what their response is, but I need to, my side of the street has to be cleared up. And that's the next layer of revelation in step 9. And then the highest one is, because I take the time and energy and thought and thoughtfulness that I share with them the wrong that I did them, it blesses them because they know that they are worthy and that they matter, and it may even heal them. That is the highest layer, if you will, of revelation in step 9. And I'm going to talk about okay, fine, to say that, how do you say this? Okay. So the first layer, I'm sorry about the times that I've done whatever I did. I'll try to do better. That is that lowest layer, if you will. Okay. The next layer is you use one of the 4, right? Selfish, dishonest, the 4 that are in the big book. I was selfish when what I did. I'll do better in the future. Okay. That's the next layer, right? So basically I kind of sit there. Now we know that because we've done the Enneagram, we've done the 12-step by type. I was specific to type issue. So it's not selfish anymore, right? In my case, right? It's probably going to be, I was being very controlling when I did what I did. And I do talk about what I did, by the way. I'm not saying that now because I don't have an example of it, but I will do better in the future. Okay, so specific to type allows us to own more than just saying selfish, right? Whatever it is. So a 2 might say selfish, but they also may say, I took over when I shouldn't have. I did something that I should have allowed you to do, that kind of thing, right? So it's specific to type. And that's still that second level, that second layer. And then the third layer, once again, is I was specific to type, right? I was controlling when I deeply regret it. How do we heal? Or even, can we heal our relationship? Or there's something that basically says that. Now, you can say this without, how do I say this? You can say this because this is a really, really good amends to say it this way, right? I was very controlling when I deeply regret that I did that to you. Can we heal our relationship? Now, if this is something that I can deeply feel, I can do the same thing and they can begin to heal from this, right? And that really and truly, we do it to clean up our side of the street. But if we do it deeply and well, and it doesn't mean with excessive emotion necessarily, right? But really, really, I want this to be better. I want to own my part in this. It is possible that they can heal from my harm. And that is all right. So before we open for this, I just want to say the next assignment is pretty easy. I want you to read the 9th step promises, which are there out on the website. You can look in the big book too if you want to. And then there's also a prayer there by type. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to look more deeply at the step 9 promises. What do they mean in our world? So you want to read that. So this is a pretty easy assignment again. All right, we're going to come back here and I'm going to open this for sharing on making direct amends. Or you can talk about living amends, or you can talk about indirect amends as well. But this is kind of the piece where we're going to talk about amends. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Well, after listening to the other shares and reflecting on my week, because I've been making them in things, and I do have one I need to make to my dad about trying to control his eating habits. Just giving unsolicited advice, blah, blah, blah. There's sometimes, though, I've noticed I need to get consultation because there is confusion. Because it's like I'm going around apologizing to the dresser, to the TV, and it's like, if there's a problem, almost like a compulsivity to own all of it 100%. And it's always 50% one person in that relationship, 50% me in that relationship. And for some reason, when there's a problem, I want to take on like 98%, just growing up being shamed and You know, my mom was highly narcissistic. I just grew up with unhealthy people who made me be the patient, the one with the problem when the whole system was sick, but I was blamed for it. So I just learned that I was like worthless. And I really default to that. When there's an issue, I just go into self-annihilation, not self-blame. I really see myself as a monster. So I just started to say, oh my God, I'm sorry. What can I do to fix it without really reasoning things out? And so what I've been trying to do is do outreach to my sponsors before I make amends, because my vision is skewed. It's all messed up. Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that up, because you do, before you make any amends, you need a trusted person or a sponsor or someone that you run the amends by. I really do always recommend that, because because we come damaged, right? I also want to say twos, when I talk about before we come to program, right, we basically feel like we didn't do any wrong, and we come to program and now suddenly, Hiroshima was our fault, right? And twos do that more than almost anybody, right? They basically take on every wrong in the world. And I think it's because they're caring and compassionate people. They see wrong and then they'll assume that somehow they did wrong. So yeah, you absolutely want to talk to somebody else before you do this, I think, absolutely. And only own your part of it. My major difficulty, it took me a long time to be able to say, how do we make this right? Or, how do I make this right? Or can we heal our relationship? It took me a long time to reach that point, because I didn't want to hear their comments at all. I didn't want to hear them say, yeah, you are selfish. I don't want to hear that right? At all. So I finally got to the point, it's like, they can say whatever it is they need to say, and I take it, because it doesn't mean what they say is necessarily true even. And most people don't fire back at you. I mean, they just don't. Usually, even if they remember it, this is me this is probably a story I'm telling myself. Even if they do remember it, they say, I don't even remember that. But in reality, my sponsor said, Cheryl, you're not that important. Right? You didn't ruin this person's life. You were just mean to him, right? So, and they went on merrily and did their thing, and they went to the zoo with their kids, right? They knock yourself out, right? So, and I think, but knowing that you are a two and knowing that you take on more than is yours, right? That's a perfect thing. And literally say to this person, I want to own my stuff, but I don't want to own their stuff. Right. So as a sponsor should be able to say, yeah, this part is yours. And once again, I talk about this little box right here, this little box that says mine, not mine. And when you're ready for amends, what part of it is mine and what part is not mine? That does not belong to me. Right. I don't know who it does belong to, but I know it doesn't belong to me. And then we have to have the discipline to basically own what is ours and not own what is theirs. And that is so hard. And this is where the discernment of someone who loves you and knows you, and I would even say someone who knows the Enneagram, right? Because my advice to a two, first of all, my advice to a 2 and a 4 when giving amends is to lock it down, have a card that has the shit on it, and that's what I'm going to say, because otherwise so much comes into it, right? And you end up once again owning Hiroshima, right? And you don't want to do that. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because I should have probably mentioned that in the very beginning, that you really do on all of these. You need to run it by somebody who is loving, who knows you and understands. And in some cases, especially like it's your sponsor, they already know you've got all this history of shit with that person, right? How much of this do I, right? Now, understanding that I'm an 8 who does not like to feel vulnerable, right? And I know at the time I didn't know that was the reason that I don't let other people comment ever on my life, but I do know that now. Doesn't mean I changed, right? But hey, growth and comfort are rarely hold hands. So thank you, Jasmine. Appreciate that. All right, Richard, to you.
Thank you, Cher. I don't know how many of you experience this, but certainly I think one of the big reasons that that I resist, that it's hard for me to make amends, is initially I had the belief that I was doing the right thing. I was doing what was best for the other person. Whether it was criticism or or pointing something out. And of course, type 1, perfection and all that stuff. But Cher, I don't know how many times you've said this, that we pretty much all of us, until we have this moment of insight, believe that everyone else obviously sees the world the way we do.
Yeah.
And so why doesn't it make sense to you what I'm saying? This is, and I don't know how many of you have heard the expression, I'm just doing this for your own good.
Yeah. I'm doing this so I feel comfortable for your own good. Right? I love it. Thank you, Richard. Lauren, to you.
Hello. I'm getting a little bit like, I'm not sure if I'm sharing on the right thing. Because I really want to share something without sharing too much. But I loved what you guys just said, especially that annihilation thing, because it wasn't the one thing. It's like, I'm going to obliterate myself. I just want to let you guys know that I short circuited. We had kind of a dramatic situation, which I'm not going to go into it to spread the drama of it, happened this past weekend. And yet, guys, program has me so wired that whenever it wasn't worse, like I'm just so focused on that, but yet the thing still happened. And as my husband and I were talking through it hours later, because we had to, he described a situation and I visualized it. And I realized in that moment, I mean, I don't know that I've had flashbacks or whatever, but I got out of the car because I moved my body. I started bawling like crazy. And then I got back into the car, and I said, what you described, you totally were okay to describe it. And yet I realized that it just connected my trauma right up to the moment where I could see it. And I had the distance because in the past, there just would have been feelings flying. And before you knew it, you're in the shitstorm sort of, even though you're both trying to work through it as a 9 and a 4. So anyways, that's not really an amends, but I don't know. Thanks for letting me share that.
But I think that's awesome because it's like, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about when we get to step 10 is the ability to observe ourselves as if we're beside ourselves, watching ourselves act that way. And once you can be that observer is when you can get back in the car and say, what you did wasn't wrong. I had a reaction, which is from trauma, but I'm better, right? I let myself cry. But that kind of thing, to recognize that and be an observer of yourself, that's where freedom comes from.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is wild. It's
I had
wonderful.
to ugly cry, and I knew that if I ugly cried in front of him, actually, I just need to move my body. It was just kind of bizarre of like, and then so a couple minutes later, after I kind of wailed outdoors where nobody was around, I came back to the car. Anyways, without telling you too much.
But I will tell you, I had something similar happen to me when we weren't getting the phone calls that Social Security said that they would call and they didn't call. And I mean, I was so frustrated and I never cry that I got up and I just sobbed. But I got up, walked away, I laid on the bed and cried. The dog came up and licked my tears because I never cry. They're like, what is this? Right. And then once I got rid of that, I came back and said, I'm sorry, but I had reached whatever that maximum is. And instead of being mean or whatever, I let it, right? And I observed myself. It's like, well, this is interesting. This is what 4s probably feel like, right? So it was good. It was good for me to feel that. Thank you, Lauren. All right, Francine, to you.
Hi. I just had to laugh when you were showing why the 9s are not willing. Sometimes I'm willing, maybe not today, but tomorrow, definitely. And then tomorrow, it will be tomorrow again. But I found it, being able to go into the break room and sort of talk about it, because I spent some time writing out my cards. And as I was writing out the cards, I realized, first of all, that what makes it a little bit more easy for me is that you're giving me the language. And it's simple language and it's good. It just gets to the point. I'm not all over the place with my feelings and my thoughts. Mm-hmm. But I also found that as I was writing it out, kind of like practicing it, marinating it in prayer and thoughts, really searching my heart for what harm did I create. I found that one of my amends, I don't know the harm. So I'm not sure what to do with that, but I know that the relationship was, harmed. I know that the
Okay.
relationship changed, but I don't know the harm.
Okay.
And then I found out, and the other one was really looking at it, probably the other person being willing as well, or, there were just like other challenges that I start seeing. But anyway, yeah, I think that what makes it easy for me is that I'm able to just kind of take time, sit with it, and hear from God about it. So.
And nine, so step 9 seems like, oh, okay, now I'm willing, and it's more complex than that. And one of the things I didn't mention in that final time when they can heal, that usually means when I've given the amends, they do comment back, and we actually have a conversation that heals the relationship, right? There is more that happens there, and that absolutely can happen and does. I will say too, if there is no harm, you probably don't owe an amends. Relationships change. So if there is no harm, I mean, and this is something, Richard, I don't know if you disagree with this. I think this is what we were talking about during office hours the other day. If I did not harm them at all, they just feel uncomfortable. They're welcome to feel uncomfortable, right? I'm going to quote it again because growth and comfort rarely hold hands. So it's like,
yeah, I would have to be able to. I'll come to office hours and talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah,
but
please do, because
it just seemed like I did something to harm that person because they called me. I mean, not, but anyway, I'll share later. But yeah,
but my thing
I don't know
is
what the harm is.
but sometimes they feel uncomfortable, and so and if it's like an 8, they'll get in your face about it, and you're like, well, and does it change the relationship? Well, yes, it does. But you know what? Then maybe it was supposed to be changed, because maybe you were quiet all the time, and you know what I mean? It's like, so some of it, that 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 is something that in program usually we're not even taught that piece of it at all, because it's especially 2s and 9s for sure. You want the other person to be comfortable. You want them to be, and then suddenly they're not comfortable. Well, you know what? I didn't harm them. I basically said what I needed to say, right? And I said it as nicely as I could at the time, whatever the time is, because once again, we're like little kids, toddlers, right? I'm clumsy at whatever it is I'm doing, but it is the right thing to do. So if you've always said yes to everything, which is what 2s do, and suddenly they're saying no, they're setting boundaries, it's going to feel uncomfortable to the other person. They'll get glad in the same clothes they got mad in, because this is a boundary that needs to be set. So am I making sense? So yeah, I'd love, come to office hours and we'll talk about the specifics of that. But if I really believe, because what we don't want is just wandering around telling everybody, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. That's not the way you want to live your life. But if you did harm to someone, you do owe an amends. And once again, when it's all said and done, when it boils right down to the bones of it, it's because I don't want this thing to own me the rest of my life. I want to own it and let it go, and I want to live my life in freedom. That's really what we're talking about, right? So yeah, thank you, Francine, for that.
And just one other thing, Shara, I found it interesting too, as I was writing out one of the cards and I was really looking at my behavior. Then I saw my 8 wing in one of them. So I was like,
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Now, what defense was this? And it was like, oh, this was control. This was my 8 wing.
Yeah, and I think it's funny too, because 9s really pretty much do not, like if I said, are you an angry person? 9s would say, no, it's really rare for me to get, and there's that bubbling underneath anger that's there.
Yes.
Just like it is for the 8, it just comes out differently, right? Okay. Thank you, Francine. All right, Dave, to you.
Well, I can relate to the wings, having an effect on this, because there's one that I have that both of my wings affect it. And my type 7, who wants to have fun, I can think of a lot of reasons to have fun instead of doing what I've agreed to do. And the other part is my 9 wing, who wants to procrastinate and just kick back and take it easy. And so it's avoiding, different ways of avoiding by being busy, or avoiding by being, I'll use my word, lazy, They both happen. So I don't know, would I be getting ahead of myself if I read one of my cards here or ahead of
No,
the group?
that'd be fine. That'd be fine.
Okay. So I've usually talked about my mom when I'm talking about making amends, and it's because I'm avoiding talking about my relationship with my wife, Kim, partly because Kim's part of this group. So I didn't want to air my dirty laundry in front of the whole group, but I'm going to do that right now because in my vulnerability lies my strength. So,
Okay.
so here it is, my amends card for Kim. I want to make amends for not keeping up on the housework and yard work that I've agreed to do. I've been selfish and lazy, and it has harmed our relationship. I've filled up my schedule with other activities and made the excuse that I was too busy. I deeply regret my breaking our agreement. How can I make this better? So, and this is not new. This has like been going on. We've been married 37 years. It's been going on for 38 years, which was the year before we got married. We lived together too. And so when you said, if you find yourself making amends again and again, maybe you're blaming the other person, whatever. I just feel like it's really just I just keep repeating the same behavior. That's not on anyone except me. So I'm hoping that calling myself out in front of 26 people will give me a little extra incentive, but that how can I make this better? Kim's response, I actually read this to her before our meeting today. She said, well, how can you make it better? Get her done. It's like, or, or as Nike said, just do it, And I thought that's what I would say to that. And so we're in agreement on that. So,
Okay, now, so I'm going to tell you as an 8 how to be compassionate with yourself, not just to be compassionate. I'll tell you how. Okay, so the first thing is that tied to what you said earlier with all the things that you have, what I'm learning from the intuitive eating thing is that our bodies have, we have, it's not even patterns, but there are cycles within, right? There's obviously cycles within the month tied to the moon, all of that kind of stuff. But even within a day, there are cycles. And when you fill all the little edges of the day and all the things are filled with other things, then the only time that you have to rest is in between those things. And it's really hard when your body is telling you this is the time to rest and you have this other stuff to do. So I think you are on the right track, that all of this other stuff that you have, let's prioritize it so the things that are important in your marriage become higher, and then the other things that have to drop off, some of them will just have to drop off. But honor the fact that your body can only do so much, that your mind can only do so much. So some of it is just honoring your body, which is what one of the lessons from the intuitive eating. And I'm learning that too, because I'm like a nonstop driver, man, right? It's like, no. And beating myself up because in the middle of the afternoon, I'm tired. Well, I've been, undernourished for like a decade. What's supposed to happen? You're going to be tired in the middle of the afternoon. So anyway, it's tied to the earlier stuff. That's how you do it. And I think you know that.
yeah, I mean, this has got to be stuck going back to childhood. A lot of this, resistance that I've had and saying other things are always more important than that.
So
But I
Dave,
also forget that
you need to be rich so you can hire someone to do that.
well, that possibility has been mentioned too, but that is not likely to happen. So, but the other thing is I have to remind myself I am almost 67 years old, but in my mind I'm 30 years old, and that's a lot of my problem too. So
yeah. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for that. And thank you for reading that. Appreciate it.
Thanks for recovering with us.